The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and add a few of my thoughts to this debate. I want to thank my colleague, the member from Charlevoix-Goutte, St. Charles, for introducing this motion. It's an extremely important discussion that we have today, and maybe as a result of this discussion we can begin to get to the bottom of why it is the government is on the one hand making claims that they're going to be doing such great things for unemployed Canadians, but on the other what we see is a great number, hundreds of thousands of Canadians in fact are going to be worse off as a result of this decision. I want to indicate to you, Mr. Speaker, that I will be sharing my time with the member from Churchill. Mr. Speaker, when the government first introduced these changes, when they told us that they were going to be moving forward with this pilot project, the Working While on Claim pilot project, they told us that the intent behind the program was to decrease the amount of clawback on employment insurance so that individuals who take a part-time job and are still able to claim EI are encouraged to continue to work. It's a laudable intent. It's an intent that we support. Unfortunately, as information about the pilot project came out, as it dribbled out, as we became increasingly aware was what was happening, we began to ask questions, as many Canadians did, calling my office, and I'm sure offices of the members opposite, to get the details as to exactly how this program was going to affect them. So we started to raise questions here in this chamber of the minister and of the parliamentary secretary. It was first of all, the minister said in her remarks that it was going to affect everybody. It was going to this program was going to benefit all Canadians that were on EI. We began to raise some discrepancies with what she was saying, and then she said that it was going to help the majority of EI recipients. And we started to bring some more information forward. And then she started to change her tune again, and she said the vast majority of EI recipients were going to be better off as a result of this project. And that is basically where they've gone. Now, you may recall that I brought a case just last week of a woman in my riding who was trying to make ends meet, picking up a few hours. And that before this program, while on EI, she was able to keep almost $110 per week. But now it's being clawed back to $75. Now, this was in such such contrast to what the minister has been telling us here, and the parliamentary secretary on her behalf have been telling us here in this chambers. My staff called Service Canada, took the details directly to Service Canada to find out what the circumstances were. Not that we didn't believe our constituent who was raising the issues, but we just wanted to double check because they flew in the face of the answer that we were getting here in the chamber. And guess what? The Service Canada employees told us that in fact this was correct, that this woman would be receiving $35 a week less as a result of her part-time efforts. Now, you would think that if it was the intent of the government to encourage people on EI to do part-time work, to find any employment opportunities, because as the minister has said, you know, you'll feel better if you're able to work even a few hours. It may provide an opportunity for you to make connections and find a full-time job. While I think that is an ideal situation, it's not completely untrue. It may happen. And so we are not opposed to this type of incentive, as long as it doesn't hurt people who, through no fault of their own, are unemployed and are receiving EI. But that's not the case. And seeing as how we brought all this information, all these cases to the minister's attention, all members of the opposition, if their intent was to make things better for people who were unemployed, why does the government not recognize that they've screwed up, that they've made a mistake, and that they need to go back to the drawing board and fix the problem?
Hear, hear.
They began to come forward with something that was an improvement over the old system. But rather than being to the benefit of 100% of EI claimants, it's maybe to the most 60%. There are still 40%. Most of them, the lowest income, the people that are the unemployed that are earning the least money of the lot, they're the ones that are being most disadvantaged, Mr. Speaker. And I say that it's wrong-headed for the government to be moving in this direction, and I urge them to make a change. Let me say this as I begin to wind down. This government fails to recognize that they're not just attacking the unemployed, people on employment insurance. They're attacking seasonal industries.
That's right.
And let me speak about the region from which I come, the Atlantic region. It's not unique. There are seasonal industries across this country. But in Atlantic Canada, Mr. Speaker, whether it be in the fishing industry, whether it be in tourism and hospitality, whether it be in forestry, there are industries that fail to operate 12 months a year. Increasingly, because of the changes in the fishing industry, now from a multi-license species licenses to single licenses, people are only able to work 4 and 5 months, maybe 6 months out of the year. And in order for them to stay around in their communities and be able to continue to work on traps, in order to be able to continue to be there the next year when it comes to lobster season, it's important that there be some way for them to pick up work.
Hear, hear.
That is of a part-time nature, Mr. Speaker. It's also important for those seasonal industries, for those employers, whether it be agriculture, fishing, or whatever, for them to be able to draw on, those residents in their communities that are available to do the work. But under this system, and under other changes that this government is planning to make to employment insurance, they want to drive all of those people from Atlantic Canada that support seasonal industries, not just Atlantic Canada, but they want to drive them out to Fort McMurray or to other places away from our province, away from our region, where supposedly they might find year-round work. And that's all great for those employers, for those industries in those areas where they're able to provide full-time work. But what about those seasonal industries that make the world turn in places like Atlantic Canada, Mr. Speaker? They're not going to have the workforce to be able to draw on. So this further penalizes, I would suggest to you, it further penalizes Atlantic Canada, it further penalizes seasonal industries in our region and across the country, and that's wrong. This is not a one-industry country. This is a country that has a diverse economy, and this government has to begin to recognize that. But let me finish by saying this. I have some hope, because I've witnessed over the past couple of weeks this government, in the face of incredible opposition, in the face of the call by tens of thousands of inshore fishermen and their families and their communities, to get them to stand up and support the owner-operator fleet separation policy. The minister and the government said that they would not. They were silent. They were they were hesitant to support fishermen. But as a result of increasing pressure, they have now stood up tall and they're supporting those fishermen. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, that if members in this House, people from across this country who recognize this is a problem, communicate to this government, they will do the right thing and fix the mess that they've made. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Malpeque.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I listened to the remarks, and I agree with most of what he had to say. But I want to relate an example to him, and just so people understand how serious this is in other areas beyond just the income of individuals. In fact, I think this is the most outrageous example of hurt from a government decision that could be, you could think of nothing less than just pure stupidity in terms of its implications. I have a constituent who is on parental leave. She's a nurse. And so for scheduling at the hospital, they are bringing her in for a 4-hour shift to complete what is a normal 12-hour shift. So she's only getting 4 hours of work. But she's doing that work, and certainly it's not much income. She's really not there for the income that much, but it keeps her skills sharp. She's in the system, so when she goes back to work, she'll be up to speed. Now, what this does, really, Mr. Speaker, is she goes in for that 4-hour shift. She drives 40 minutes each way. She has to hire a babysitter, or sometimes her mother-in-law comes in and looks after the child. But the implications on the system beyond the income, so when she goes in for 4 hours work, she only gets paid for 2. The implications on the health care system are real, Mr. Speaker, in that you have a nurse now not getting into scheduling, and I wonder if the member could comment on that point, that the implications are well beyond employee and employer. They, in this case, impact on the health care system, and it could be easily fixed.
Honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you very much. I thank my colleague for the question. And there's no question that what this government is doing, the changes that it's making on the employment insurance system, a system, by the way, that is funded by employees and by employers, not by the government. Let's remember that. What they are doing is they are creating real problems for people that are unemployed and for employers that depend on a seasonal labour force to be available. Increasingly, there's a casualization of work as well, Mr. Speaker, whether that be at hospitals or whether that be at major employers, where employers are unloading full-time employees and they're increasingly depending on part-time employees. Well, if this government keeps moving in the direction they're going in, there's going to be less people available to fill those part-time and casual jobs, Mr. Speaker, and maybe those employers are going to have to move out to Alberta as well.
Questions and comments. L'honorable député de Verchères-les-Patriotes.
The honourable member for Verchères-les-Patriotes. First of all, I'd like to congratulate my colleague for his speech, but I'd like to put a question to him. The Conservatives talk about people who will benefit from these changes to EI. Does my colleague have the impression that this is the reality for the most vulnerable workers?
Cole Harbour.
Well, thanks very much for the question, and she's absolutely right that the government is making those claims, that everybody will be better off. But what we've heard in this House, what she's heard, and what I've heard in my office in Dartmouth Cole Harbour, is that the most vulnerable, those people that are unemployed through no fault of their own, that are earning the lowest amounts of money, are the ones that are having their meager earnings clawed back even worse than others are. And, you know, it's unbelievable the lengths to which this government will go to further shift burden onto the most vulnerable in our communities. It's wrong, and it's up to us to stand up and to push this government back and to make sure that Canadians know this government is not representing them. It's representing somebody else, and we're going to be here for them. Thank you.
Here.